I stayed up much past my customary bedtime of 10 p.m. On the sidebar, there was a playlist. Ready to play. I watched a video of one of my favorite basketball players, Larry Big Ulf Johnson, wearing a ponytail with his long blonde hair. He really resembled a movie star. I knew him back in college. He was a standout player for the squad and lived in the same building as me. We frequently ran into each other, especially during the off-season and when he got pro. He joined the Wizards, the team nearest to my home in Virginia. He retired from the NBA 3 years ago and currently works as an analyst for various TV games. I was watching some of his older videos, reminiscing about the past. The next clip was not about basketball. A television tape showed Big Ul dancing intimately with a gorgeous blonde woman at a Miami club. The dancing was highly provocative, and to my surprise, the blonde woman turned out to be my wife, Lee. The clip had just been posted, with a heading Big Ul Another Conquest. I watched the full 3-minute tape, which ended with Big Ul and Lee kissing. I quickly downloaded the clip. I contacted Lee's phone, but she did not answer. The timestamp on the video indicated that it was filmed only an hour earlier and was freshly released online. Lee was scheduled to travel to Miami for a 4-day business conference with colleagues from her advertising firm, including my friend Bart Kovac. I called Bart and he said, "Hey Bart, this is Lee Martin." I replied using my moniker, Marty. There was a slight delay before Bart responded, "How's it going, Marty?" "This is not good, Bart." "Do you know where Lee is now?" I asked frantically. "Man, heck." Bart paused. "So she is with Big Ul?" I pressed. "I need to know. The full event is now on YouTube and my kids will watch it tomorrow. I need to know if she's been with him and how long." They were expected to come home around lunchtime tomorrow after spending 3 days in Miami. They got together on Tuesday when we arrived. While we were checking in, they recognized each other, most likely from college. She attends meetings during the day but does not join us for lunch. Her roommate claims she has not been there in any nights. I assume she is with the guy. We all assumed that. "I'm very sorry, Marty." I agree. "Well, do you see her in the morning?" "She's boarding a plane." "I might." "She turns up to the morning meetings. Just not breakfast." "Maybe she's still in the motel. Just in another room." "Okay. Tell her not to bother coming home if she had any plans to do so. He also resides here. I do not want to confront her about this. If she asks, I will tell her." "Okay. Fair enough. See you." Lee and I met in college when we were both 20 years old in our junior year, taking an advanced math course. When I got into class on the first day, I saw the most stunning woman I had ever seen. She just sat there, scribbling on a paper. There were just 5 other students. They're all guys. She was sitting alone, so I sat next to her. She looked over at me. "Okay. I see someone has opted to take that seat." I was beginning to wonder if I smelled funny. I looked around at the other guys who were all nerdy, probably quite shy. I was not a nerd, despite taking an advanced math course. I am 5 feet 8 inches tall, weigh 150 pounds, and have brown eyes and hair. Not that awful. Shocking. Women appear to like me, if not blown away. I used to get told that I had personality. I don't believe you smell funny. However, I'd need to be closer to tell. They're all shy, nerdy individuals. "So you're not a nerd?" "No, I can see it. I'm Lima." She offered her hand, and we shook. "I'm Lee Martin. When we marry, you won't even need to replace the monogram on your luggage and handkerchiefs." "How convenient." She smiled at me. Then the instructor walked in. After class, Lee and I strolled together to the Student Union building. She had green eyes, blonde hair, was 5 feet 7 inches, had a medium shape, huge breasts, and was just a stunning girl. Next door. Face. When she smiled at me, I was utterly taken. I told her that I bet you were surprised when no one in class sat next to you because every guy would want to sit next to you. "Thanks." I was startled. "Mostly, I have to discourage guys. You took advantage of my insecurity, and I am now unable to discourage you. I have another lesson scheduled, but I'd like to take you out to dinner." Perhaps tonight. Since we are in the same class, we should get to know each other. No dinner. Sorry. I have a steady man, and he would not enjoy it. I had to try. Well, I hope to see you around. I agree. I like you. At least we'll see each other in class. We did saw each other in class twice every week. It was a difficult lesson that required a lot of effort on my part. I once asked her a question regarding a problem, and she explained it to me. I asked her after class if she was having any difficulties with the course. No, I am good at math. How about you? I need to take it from my chemistry major, but I'm devoting a lot of time to it. Perhaps you could give me some pointers. Is this a come-on? I told you I had a man. No, I respect it. I just need a hand. We may sit at the snack bar and go over the materials as if you were my tutor. Okay. Snack bar opens at 4:00. Done. I got to know Lee a lot better at the snack bar meetings. She and I hit it off. We would chat about many more topics, not just mathematics. One day, a large man stepped in and approached to our table where we had the books spread out. Lee looked up at him and gave him her deadly smile. Marty, this is Rashard, my lover. Rashard, this is Marty from my math class. I stepped up and we shook hands. Rashard was a medium-complexioned black male, possibly 6 to 220 pounds. He sat down next Lee. We closed our math books and Rashard wondered why I was taking the course with Lee and the other nerds. I need a higher-level math course for my chemistry major. It also helps me with programming. The three of us then began discussing why certain courses that seemed unrelated to our majors were compulsory. It was an intriguing conversation. Rashard was intelligent. I asked him about his major. I'm studying physical education. I play hockey, but I want to be a high school teacher. Unless I can make some money playing hockey, I could consider becoming a gym teacher. That is a solid plan. I'm not sure where I'm going yet. Can majors and programmers both get jobs? I just haven't decided which path to choose, you know? How about you, Lee? I want to do business. I am majoring in business. I enjoy the thought of making some money. As the semester progressed, I spent more time with Lee. I resided in an off-campus apartment and once invited her and Rashard over for a meal. I also invited my neighbor Stephanie, who was a senior and very lovely. She and I were in a casual relationship. The evening proceeded smoothly. I prepared fish stew and spinach salad and we had cookies and ice cream for dessert. The women had wine while Shad and I had beer. Lee and Rashard departed after midnight following a game of bridge. Surprisingly, despite having never played together before, we all enjoyed the game. Rashard and Stephanie partnered up and Lee and I made the opposite team. Lee employed some novel bidding methods which I picked up on and we won. Stephanie spent the night. We had a physical connection, but we were both aware that we were only friends with benefits. She had a guy at home and we never talked about how he felt about us. That evening was noteworthy because Lee encouraged me to participate in a duplicate bridge event at the Army post. I accepted. Meanwhile, Stephanie had Rashard's number. She must have acquired it at dinner, but it was not visible. I noticed them together approximately 2 days later. They were walking across campus towards our building. I followed at a respectful distance. They went inside and I followed. They got into the elevator, which stopped on the 4th story where she lived. What do I do now? The bridge competition was coming up on Friday, only 2 days away. I returned to my apartment and reclined by the window reading and keeping watch. Rashard left about 2 hours later through the front entrance. I rushed over to Stephanie's door and knocked, but she didn't answer right away. She appeared flushed, wearing flip-flops and a baggy dress. Hey Steph, do you need some company? Not now, Marty. Damn, Marty, you saw the way you arrived here. Did you see? Yep. Have you had a wonderful time? Shad seems to have been a little devious. I should feel awful about it, but I don't. I feel fantastic. Sorry, don't worry. I am trying to find out how to handle the problem. I hope you don't ruin things up for Lee and Rashard. He's a diversion for me just like you. Well, not quite as much as you. Imagine you were in Lee's shoes. Would you like to know about Chad's slip-up? Yeah, I agree. The bridge tournament was a blast. The army personnel were good at cards. But Lee and I finished third out of 20 on our team. Not bad. She muttered something about earning points. As we walked back to my car, she mentioned, "Why haven't you told me about Shad and Steph?" I was unsure. "How did you find out?" "Steph informed Rashad that you knew. Then he brought it up." "Sorry, my curiosity got the best of me." "So what happened throughout your talk?" "We decided to take a few weeks off to see how we feel." "I get it. Marty, I'd like you to take me to your house if you like." "Definitely." I drove, perhaps not as carefully as usual. Returned to the building. Lee was distracting me. She moved back, grabbed me and drew me into the bedroom. God, Marty, my God. I believed her. I've always thought we'd be a terrific fit. We laid there for 20 minutes, tenderly touching one another. I got up to clean my teeth. Lee entered as I was finishing. I offered her a spare toothbrush once we'd gotten rid of the morning breath. We got rid of my morning woody. During breakfast, Lee questioned if I was as excellent as Stephanie. Was I as good as Shad? We met eyes. Then she grinned. He's bigger, but you're superior. Steph is really excellent, but you are fantastic. We became inseparable after that. Lee has basically moved in with me. Rashad was not pleased, but he didn't have anything to say. It did not take him long to find another girlfriend. He continued to pay Stephanie occasional visits. During his senior year, Big L moved into the building. He also lived on the 4th floor. I would infrequently see him with Stephanie. They didn't live together, but they frequently hung around. We exchanged greetings until one day Steph invited us up for dessert. Big L was there. It was a nice evening. Big L struck me as pleasant, intelligent, and perhaps a little overly attentive to Lee. Steph might have felt the same way, since we were never invited back. Lee and I got married at the age of 20. Right after college, I was hired by the government as a programmer at the Pentagon. Lee obtained work with a public relations firm, primarily handling advertisements for companies seeking to influence government officials such as senators, congressmen, and agency people. My grandfather left me a house near my business. It was a rental, and the lease was up. We've moved in. It had 3 bedrooms, a large kitchen, a remodeled garage, and a full basement. It required some work, which I completed with the assistance of a high school acquaintance who had a construction company in Virginia. Lee became pregnant, and we had twin girls when we were 22, Betsy and Linda. They weren't identical twins, but they sure had us on edge. Lee took a year off, and I curtailed my workload to ensure the twins had the attention they required. After that year, I switched to contractor status, allowing me to work from home while Lee gradually returned to part-time work. By the time the children were 4, she was back to working full-time. By then, I had established a stable routine with the children and was doing well with my contracting business. Although I did not receive perks, Lee's job became increasingly difficult owing to her hard work and ambition. My job relied heavily on inventiveness. Some projects were for the government, while others were personal endeavors. I had a few new system ideas that I thought could be successful, but I decided not to pursue them right away. Lee was making a nice living, and the girls were growing up. At 35, I was running and playing table tennis, having entered junior high at the age of 13. Trust me, it's more difficult than it sounds against skilled opponents. Before witnessing Lee in the movie with Big Ul, I would have thought our bedtime routine was satisfactory. For me, it was. But after 15 years together, Lee may have felt differently. I checked up where Big Ul resided, which was only 3 miles away. I was curious if what happened in Miami was one-time or ongoing. I had some other questions in mind. The next day, I had the girls and myself take DNA samples. It was a Friday, and despite being informed about the YouTube video, kids had to attend school for tests and band practice. Lee called at 10 o'clock. I let it go to voicemail. "Marty, please pick up. I love you. I made an error. I will be back this afternoon. I'll." Crap. SOBS. One of the upgrades I made to the house was an electronic entrance system. I changed the code and furnished the converted garage with Lee's possessions. Both my mother and Lee's mother contacted to inquire about my next steps. I was honestly unsure, and I told them so. I checked Lee's Gmail account, scrolling through her emails from the previous month, even those in the trash. There was no contact with Big Ul, but there were work-related emails and a few slightly suggestive ones from a coworker who was also on his way to Miami. Lee's flight was scheduled at noon. I ignored all of her calls. Instead, I asked a friend to go to the airport and keep an eye on things. He noticed Lee and her coworkers disembark. She looked around before going to get her luggage. A few minutes later, Big Ul stepped out of the plane. He spotted Lee and joined her near the baggage claim, but she appeared to resist his advances. They ended up sharing a cab, and my pal got everything on tape. After getting the tape, I observed Lee arrive home alone, unable to enter using her new code. I approached her at the door, and she apologized tearfully, claiming she had no idea how it all transpired. You don't live here anymore, Lee. Your belongings are in the garage until you find a new location. Maybe you should visit Ul's place. I told her I had nothing with him. I love you, she pleaded. You have publicly humiliated me. They mocked our marriage. The girls are in school, and who knows what they're going through. You are despicable. Get out of my sight. She left in tears, sitting outside in a lawn chair. Our neighbor, Mrs. Cunningham, came over to console her. I called Lee's mother and told her that Lee was nearby and might need help. Ellen, her mother, wasn't particularly sympathetic, but she promised to come over in an hour. I sat in the kitchen, sipping coffee, trying to decide what to do next. My thoughts were still jumbled from the night before. I contacted a lawyer I knew who introduced me to Joan Ellis, a family law attorney. I set up an appointment with her for the following Monday. Surprising, Ms. Ellis phoned me back within a half hour. Mr. Martin, this is Joan Ellis. Do you have an appointment for Monday with your wife and the basketball player, she asked. Yeah, it is correct. How did you know? The video did not mention her name. I responded. A television reporter found it out. Big L is a big deal around here, especially among gossipers. I felt we shouldn't wait until Monday. Can you come in? Tomorrow at 10 a.m., she suggested. Sure. 10 works for me. I agreed. Great. Please provide a brief history of your relationship with your wife and Mr. Johnson, if possible. Also collect any financial papers you have. She gave instructions. We ended the discussion with her warning me to avoid rash decisions. As I hung up, the phone rang again. It was a huge L. Marty. I am calling to apologize. He said, screw you. I'm going to ruin your life to the fullest extent possible. Jerk. I replied. Whoa. It wasn't just me. It was just as much her. It's just happened. He came to his defense. I was blissfully married to her before Miami. We have 2 children. You're a jerk. If you see me approaching, run. I spoke quietly but firmly. There was a lengthy delay before he hung up. But now I had his number. I examined our common mobile phone account for Lee's calls and discovered LS number. But only after she landed in Miami. And then, twice. I couldn't observe today's calls, but I assumed their meeting in Miami was unplanned. I checked the Wiz schedule and noticed they had a game in Miami on Wednesday with Big Ul as the color guy, meaning he was there on business. The doorbell rang. It was my parents and in-laws, but not Lee. I welcomed them by giving them beverages, but they declined. We all sat down and I stood at the entrance to the living room. So, what is on your mind? I asked. My mother, Lacey, spoke up. We talked outside and decided to check on your mental state. I am thinking. My voice began to catch. I collected myself and exchanged a gaze with my mother, who appeared to comprehend my distress. Later, she said that my expression was so distraught that she couldn't see how things could be fixed. My father inquired, would you be willing to speak with Lee? She inquired as to when we arrived at her residence. Why? There was nothing she could say. She devastated our family. Not just one night, but 3. She didn't even bother to hide it from her co-workers. The whole world now knows. I responded harshly. Ellen interjected, Marty, I know she messed up big time, but you have girls and you have been in love for many years. There's a lot to save, if you can. She isn't my wife anymore. I will never see her in that way again. She's only the mother of my children. That is it. I stated strongly. Listen, you are hurting right now. Your pride has suffered, but your marriage will not end because of a few days. Ellen encouraged Ellen. I respect and adore you all, but especially your daughter. She has done something unforgivable. Please do not try to fix this again. It is over. I finished. She raised her hands. You should all start thinking about what life will be like following the divorce or when the separation is finalized. I continued. My mother, with tears in her eyes, said, Marty, just give it a few days. Only a short time. Your father and I can take the kids for the weekend. We'll head to the lake. I agreed. And right then, the girls got home via bus. They ran to the door, but the code had changed, so they had to knock. They were astonished to see their grandparents there. They wanted to tell me about their day at school. Betsy's friend, Sharon Davis, approached her about the video. Betsy stated she hadn't seen it but was aware of it. Sharon wondered if her parents would divorce up. Betsy and Linda were unsure. I knew the truth. I assured them we could work it out later. They didn't appear really upset. Linda inquired where her mother was. Ellen responded, she's next door. Your grandparents wanted to talk to your father, but I believe you should pack for the weekend because you are staying with us. We'll head to the lake. They were ecstatic, but they wanted to see Lee. We sent them upstairs to pack. I didn't think they should see her, but the others felt it was vital. I suggested that Lee see them outdoors on the porch once they were packed. Ellen went to collect Lee. They loaded their things into the car and waited on the porch with the grandparents. Lee came over with Ellen. The girls did not rush towards her. They waited. I opened the window in the upper bedroom so that I could see and hear everything. Lee knelt in front of the girls and all three hugged. Mom? Linda asked. What have you done? How could you be so close to that guy? This was the most emotional moment. I just made a terrible mistake. I need to figure out why. But I still care deeply for you girls and your father. Betsy was not impressed by this. She was the tougher of the two. If you loved Dad, you couldn't do it. You put it all on video. How could you do that? She was sobbing now. Lee was crying. I'm so sorry. I am terribly sorry. It was a poor error. Lee embraced Linda, but Betsy pushed back. Lee got up and dashed to her father's car. My parents got the girls into the van. All of them drove away in various directions. I just sat on my bed, stunned and heartbroken. Then I became quite angry. I was furious at Lee and Larry. I paced. I yelled. I went downstairs into the basement and began punching a bag. I had it down there. I decided that regardless of what else happened, both of them had to face the penalties. Following that, I did my best to repair the damage to my hands. I then drank a nightcap and went to bed. It took me a while to fall asleep. The following morning I went for a long, fast run. Then I collected my financial paperwork and went to the lawyer's office. Joan Ellis, a woman of 45 with brown hair and eyes, greeted me. She was dressed casually with pants and a sweatshirt. We shook hands. I apologized. I'm not dressed up. It's Saturday. And I was doing some yard work. She apologized. Don't worry. You look fine. I reassured her with a smile. Let's enter the meeting room, she proposed, leading the way. I began. Miss Ellis. I'd like to know my choices for divorcing my wife. I can walk you through it. But are you completely certain you want a divorce? It's a challenging journey. Do you have children? She inquired. Yes, twins. 13. I want custody, I confirmed. Let's go over that again first. If terminating your marriage is the only option. Was the Miami incident a one-time occurrence or had it happened before? She probed. I don't believe she's cheated before. I'm not sure, I replied. If that is the case, Would you forgive her? She asked. No. I responded quickly without explaining. All right. Let us discuss about finances, she suggested. We discussed our earnings, contributions to the children's upbringing, and assets. Joan was relieved to learn that I owned the house before the marriage and that the children had always lived there. She also assumed that my job as the primary caretaker would help me gain custody. However, she reminded me that nothing is certain. I earned around the same as Leah, but my income was not as constant. Joan thought neither of us would have to pay alimony. The parent who does not have custody would be accountable for child support. I was curious how quickly we could begin the divorce procedure. Perhaps a week to prepare and file the documents. But I think you should wait a little longer. Individuals can change their thoughts. You will also most likely need counseling, Joan advised. Can we skip that? I truly do not want to talk to her alone, I replied. You'll need to have those chats. We will endeavor to keep them brief. Why are your hands bandaged? She asked. I got really angry last night and took it out on the punching bag without gloves, I explained. Well, at least you did not confront Mr. Johnson or your wife, she remarked. Speaking of which, can I sue him for this? He needs to face the consequences, I insisted. In this situation, it is no longer possible to suit for adultery or alienation of affection. I also checked the Florida statute and there is no option there, she explained. He still needs to pay. I spoke strongly, my voice flat. I will see what I can do. But please, no violence, she insisted. I cannot make that assurance. He has to face the consequences. I won't be able to bear it if he gets away with this, I responded. Mr. Martin, I must advise you that if I had knowledge that you were planning a violent act, I may have to report it, she warned Joan. You will never have that information. Thank you for telling me, I reassured her. I made an arrangement with her and paid a retainer. I asked her to complete the paperwork as soon as possible. I arrived home at midday. My father, Leland, called as I stepped in. Hi. How are you today? He asked. Okay. I just returned from the lawyer, I responded. That was rapid. What were they saying? He inquired. She and I talked about what would be involved in a divorce. Marty, please hold off on that. Take your time. This is a big decision, so don't rush it. My father advised Dad that the moment Lee cheated on that person, she was done. She did it repeatedly. Makes matters worse. But once is enough, I countered. Your mother believes she has damaged you so deeply that there is no turning back. Maybe she's right, but I still want you to take things slowly. Give Lee an opportunity to explain, he implored. What could she possibly say to sway my opinion? I questioned. There was silence for a time. Okay. I cannot think of anything, he admits. That's it, I concluded. We discussed how the girls were feeling. Linda was quite depressed. Betsy was upset and struggling to control her emotions. Mom was attempting to console them, promising them that they would never lose a parent and would always have both of us. We said farewell. The landline rang. Without caller ID, I let the call go to voicemail. It was Lee. Marty, if you are present, please pick up. I need to talk to you, Marty. I need that. I botched up. I know it. You're the only person I can talk to about anything like this. And now I have lost you. Please. I understand how furious and embarrassed you must feel. I apologize. She sobbed before hanging up and tears streamed down my cheeks. I returned to the basement. This time I donned gloves. It still hurts. I punched and kicked the bag till I could hardly stand. Afterward I went upstairs to take a shower. Some men turn to alcohol in times like this. I prefer carrying the bag or going for a run. I considered methods to get back at Larry. One notion kept cropping up in my head. I found a tool. Despite the fact that I already had 2 registered firearms, AR-45 and 2.40 S&W. One day, while jogging, I noticed a sparkle in the tall grass. It turned out to be a tourist, 0.380. I brought it home, cleaned it up, and discovered it was loaded and functional. But I observed that the serial number had been filed off, rendering it unlawful. Regardless, I choose to keep it. I brought it to the shooting range once and it shot reasonably well. The idea of employing tourists on Larry crossed my head several times. However, with the girls to care for, I couldn't risk ending up in prison. Nonetheless, that guy was aggravating. I dismissed those notions. It didn't seem like a good moment to chat to Lee. I knew we would have to face each other eventually, but the thought of seeing her made me sick to my stomach. I was alone in the house, and a feeling of despair washed over me. It seemed like a heavy weight was pushing down on me, making it difficult to breathe. Fear gripped me, and I jumped from the couch. If anyone had seen me, they might have assumed I had lost my mind. I realized I needed to do something, so I went for a fast walk. It led me past Larry's home. I didn't linger, but I did notice a lack of security around his home. A beautiful modern house along the street with a basketball hoop in the driveway and a spacious garage in the back. I walked past it a few times and took some photographs with my phone. I walked by Lee's parents' home up north. Their cars were parked outside while ours stayed in the garage. I continued going. In a convenience store, I grabbed a prepaid cell phone and a Diet Pepsi before heading home. It was about 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. Once inside, I cooked a sandwich but could only eat a few bites before becoming overwhelmed with misery. I took the 380 and drove out to the countryside where a friend owned some land with an outdoor range. There was no one nearby, so I went through 2 boxes of ammunition with the pistol. It wasn't fancy, but it did the job, although a little heavier than ideal. On the way back, I stopped at a drugstore to get 2 neoprene wraps for my thighs. Back home, I made a wrap to carry the 380 on my back and tried it out while running. It worked well. My phone had been turned off all day and I hadn't checked emails. When I turned it on, I discovered 11 voicemails, 20 or so texts from family, friends, and co-workers, and a slew of emails. Lee and my mother made the same plea in all of their communications. They wanted to discuss. The texts were similar and included a few from Lee's father, Milt. The first was an apology for Lee's behavior and perceived failure as a father, while the second advised that we converse away from the women. I contacted him back and we decided to meet in Raymond Park by the basketball court in 30 minutes. I put on some jeans and slid the 380 into my pocket in case I bumped across Larry, who lived about a half-mile away from the park. I drove about for 10 minutes past Larry's house. I arrived at the park early, as did Milt. It's not a large park and it was not crowded. We shook hands and sought a bench distant from the basketball court. Milt spoke first. "I wanted to make sure you were doing okay, Ellen, and your mother seemed concerned." "I'm not doing well, Milt. I feel worse than ever. Well, once my mother died, it took me a year to feel normal again. I simply took it one day at a time. That is all you can do." Easy to say. It was quite difficult to do, and it's just been one day. If that helps, Lee has nearly shut down. She hasn't eaten since she arrived and she hasn't said anything. We're thinking of getting her some help. You, on the other hand, look far better than she does. Perhaps it is the guilt. She has it, but you don't. That's difficult to hear, Milt. The twins will require her. I need a mother. I don't understand why she's so distraught. I mean, she did everything in the open. Did she believe nobody would find out? I can't believe it. Even without YouTube, someone from her workplace will eventually appear. Some of them are personal pals. They would have leaked the information. I do not believe she was thinking clearly at all. Perhaps she found herself in an unusual circumstance away from her family with a famous guy after her. She might have simply succumbed to feelings she would ordinarily ignore. That is my opinion on it. Milt, at least you are being reasonable, but I suppose she had a crush on Larry since school. And felt she could have it all. What is your plan? I am probably going to divorce her. Right now, thinking about her makes me angry and bitter. I hope it won't make me sick. Someone else urged to take your time making decisions, but I don't see how you could return to any kind of family life with her. Exactly. It is a lost cause. I'll wait, but not for too long. You could want to prepare her if she is indeed as terrible off as you claim. I will do my best. We waved goodbye as I walked back to my car, which was parked close on the street. I noticed Larry dribbling a basketball up the connecting street toward the court. I began to reach for the pistol. Milt noticed him too. He was driving toward Larry, leaning on the horn. Larry became shocked and dropped the ball in the roadway. He recklessly jumped at it without looking. It was not Milt who struck him. Milt's car stopped a car approaching from the other direction, which may have been moving too quickly. The other car, an SUV of some sort, hit him before the driver could even brake. Larry was catapulted across the hood and windshield, up into the air and then down to the street. Milt continued driving. I hurried over to Larry. He was still alive and cognizant at the time. I looked at him. The SUV driver rushed over, saying that he had dialed 911. Fortunately, we were just about 4 blocks from the hospital. Larry recognized me. He attempted to talk, but nothing came out. I saw him slowly go away. The paramedics arrived in roughly 2 minutes. They tried hard, but they couldn't save Big Ul. I felt an odd combination of emotions. The police showed up. I was a little apprehensive because, although having a concealed carry permit, the .380 was not permitted. However, I gave them an interview and provided my name and address with no repercussions. The SUV driver, an elderly man, was devastated. I informed him and the officers that there was nothing he could have done better. Larry had gone for the lost ball at the wrong time. After approximately an hour, I drove back home. I got rid of the .380 and went over to Milt's residence. I knew Lee was present, but I needed to address the terrible traffic accident with Milt. I parked outside and rang the doorbell. Ellen answered. She could see I was emotional, and I was, but with a sense of euphoria. At least there is respite. I knew I'd probably avoided a murder charge. It was pure luck, but I needed to chat with Milt. I asked Ellen, "Is Milt around? I need to talk with him about something." She turned and said, "Milt, don't you want to see Lee?" "No, not yet." Milt. Milt walked downstairs, and I motioned for him to step outside so that we could talk. "Milt, Big Ul, passed away." "Heck, you ended him." "I noticed you have AR-380, guy." "Marty." But if you ask me, he didn't appear to be astonished. "I did not end him. He was hit by a car after you honked at him. He dropped his basketball and raced into the street after it like a child. I watched him die." I couldn't help smirking. I understand it now. An accident. God operates in surprising ways. I'll leave it up to you or Ellen to tell Lee about her boyfriend. He was not her boyfriend, but he will tell her. I'm guessing it will be all over the news. Definitely. How is she holding up? Not excellent. And you, on the other hand, appear strangely relieved. I felt robbed when he died, but then I saw it as a form of relief. Marty, I want to save my daughter. I believe she's on a bad path. I know she messed up, but I love her and want her to have a chance in life. So if you can, please avoid getting in the path. Perhaps later. Give a hand. It's a difficult request, but I'm asking. Milt, I need some time to think about it. If we discuss too soon, I won't be able to help. You should keep her away. I'll mull it over. I will attempt to work something out. And thank you for the congratulations on avoiding a murder accusation. We chuckled at that. We returned to the house and I drove away. I slept through the night. The girls called and we had a terrific conversation. Then I fell asleep. Sunday returned me to a terrible mood. It was a pleasant day, but I found myself just thinking about my marriage. Regardless of what Milt stated, I knew Lee and I could never reconcile. It was a sad conclusion, but it was true. I went for another long run, then bathed and went to my folks' house for a Sunday cookout, bringing along some brats. The twins seemed to be in a better mood after a video call with Lee, who appeared to have perked up, lifting their spirits. I was interested about that. My mother stated that there was no mention of Big Ellie's affair or Larry's death during their conversation. Simply chat about school. Lee told the girls that she would see them when she felt better. I liked spending time with my family and the daughters while they were swimming. I told my parents that I had witnessed Big L's accident and death. They were taken aback. My father inquired, You didn't have anything, right? No, it's just a coincidence. I was at the park with Milt chatting. He drove away and Larry was hit while chasing his ball on the street. Okay, well, I can't say I apologize. May God have pity on his soul. We changed the topic. On Monday, I got a call from Joan Ellis Goes First. She questioned about my thoughts on Larry's death. She had no idea I was present at the scene. My name had not been mentioned. I recounted the incident and she appeared astonished, maybe a little suspicious. I would probably feel the same way in her shoes. Then she told me that the paperwork would be ready by Wednesday and asked when I wanted it to be served. I asked her to hold off for a while because Lee was in a fragile state. I had made some type of pledge to Milt. The children opted to attend school, despite the fact that Big L's death and his activities the week prior made headlines. I was alone myself, so I decided to do some work. I spent half the day on army chores and a few hours on personal pursuits. After their extracurricular activities at school, I picked up the girls and we ate pizza for dinner. It's something they appreciate, so I figured it would be great. We enjoyed a nice evening, but before bedtime they both begged if their mother would come back. I said honestly, I don't believe things will be the same as they were before. I cannot foretell the future, but I do not see us returning to the way things were. There will be changes, but please know that we will always adore you. On Tuesday, Milt called and Ellen joined him. They recommended we meet up, so I agreed to meet them at Starbucks when we received our beverages. Milt stated that he had consulted with a psychologist who specialized in family counseling. He proposed that Lee and I participate. Ellen went on to say that if we filed for divorce due to infidelity, the court would almost certainly impose counseling. Okay, I replied, but I'm not sure if counseling will assist her if we truly get into it. I am not going to sugarcoat this. We aren't asking you to lie. Simply approach it cautiously. Listen to the therapist. Talk with Lee. Otherwise, she could face harsh consequences. Big LS accident appeared to startle her. We didn't tell her you were there. The first session was set for the following Monday at 10 a.m. I came quickly, not wanting to waste time with Lee. Dr. Sylvia Price, a counselor, described her practice, which included dealing with situations of marital infidelity. She inquired about my goals for the counseling sessions. I want to move forward with my life. My major priority is being a good father to my children. I don't believe Lee and I can reconcile. Well, how about you, Lee? What are your goals? I want things to go back to the way they were. But I recognize that this may not happen. I still want to marry Marty, even if things have to alter. Dr. Price examined both of us. According to my understanding, Lee traveled to Miami for a work conference, where she met a man from her institution and spent several nights with him. Their relationship went public since the man was well known. Is that why we are here? Yes, Lee admits. I hadn't expected our romance in Miami to become public. I assumed that would remain between us while I was gone from my family. Dr. Price questioned whether that was the case. Why did you go dancing with Mr. Johnson? You knew he was renowned. I hoped it would be entertaining. Lee remarked that it was distant from the hotel and ended up being fun. But you must have understood that your co-workers would find out about your relationship, and Marty would find out soon after. Let's set that aside for now, Dr. Price said. Okay, Lee agreed. Marty, could you please clarify why you are positive the marriage is over? I gazed directly at Lee because she was the person I trusted and adored the most. I was devastated to see her betray me so openly and effortlessly. I've suffered loss before. For example, my grandparents died in a car accident. However, this is not like the others. I cannot put myself in a position to be hurt like that again. If Lee can do it, so can you. I cannot give her or anybody else that much influence over me again. Lee cried openly as I talked. I made it clear that I would never trust her again. How do you feel when you see her like this? Dr. Price inquired, just unhappy and angry. It was quite hurtful to me and our children. Even if it was unintentional, it was still bad. All for 3 nights with a guy from your past. I focused my queries directly at Lee. Lee sobbed. No, I'm not sure why I did that. Take it easy, Lee, Dr. Price interfered. Is it true that you had feelings for Mr. Johnson while in school? Yes, he was gorgeous and famous and he expressed an interest in me. I rejected him down since I was with Marty, Lee admitted. So, why did you agree in Miami? I questioned. I was dissatisfied leading up to the vacation. We were all really busy. Miami felt like an opportunity to break free. But once I saw Larry, I knew I couldn't resist him. It happened so quickly. I can't explain it, Lee confessed. We had a wonderful night before you went, right? Or were you faking? I challenged. No, that was real. I was still feeling it on the flight. I botched up, Lee said, crying again. I felt tears rise up, but my wrath returned. I needed to get out before I burst. Dr. Price followed me and suggested I spend a moment in the restroom while she spoke with Lee alone. After about 15 minutes, Lee reappeared, no longer in tears. I apologize, Marty, she added before leaving. Dr. Price turned to face me. How are you feeling about Mr. Johnson's death? I was there when he died. I was pleased he was gone. I could have killed him myself if he hadn't been hit first. I know it seems crazy, but that's how I feel, I admit. And today the same, perhaps less. That guy ruined my entire life for a tight relationship. I felt cheated since I couldn't get off him. Why does Lee's affair with Larry feel like it is wrecking your life? Dr. Price inquired. I was committed to my family. Now everything has changed. Lee's dishonesty broke my faith. I doubt I'll ever be able to trust anyone again, I confessed, but it has only been a short while. Have you considered how passionate Lee and Larry's interactions were? Yeah. I watched the video. They were consumed by desire, I responded. How did that make you feel? Betrayed. It was the ultimate treachery. Lee. No matter what happens, she will always remember that affair. If we stayed married, I'd always worry if she thought of him while we were together. I want to spoil that memory for her. This is the least I can do, I admitted. That is a challenging stance. You used to adore this woman, Dr. Price noticed. Used to? I genuinely adored her. That's why it hurt so much. She ripped me apart. That was my conclusion, the session concluded. Dr. Price recommended I consider what living arrangements could be made if we decide to split. Lee's version of the story. My goal is to explain what happened in Miami. Why did I make the choices I did? In addition, I'll look into the potential of reconciling with Marty before the Miami trip. I felt aimless and lacked delight in activities I had enjoyed. Work and family life felt routine as they had for months. I detected a pervasive sense of boredom. I was looking forward to the Miami trip. Brady Bean, a co-worker, has been expressing interest in me since he started at the office. Despite my attempts to dismiss him, he persisted. Although he was not extremely handsome, he had a friendly personality which was intriguing. His persistence was nice even if I was uninterested. When we found out we'd both be in Miami, he suggested we use it as an opportunity to be intimate without consequences. I made it clear that I was not interested, but I knew he was not going to give up quickly. However, Larry was already at our hotel when we arrived and he was undoubtedly gorgeous. His excitement quickly attracted me and I was drawn to him. He made it plain that he wanted me and I agreed to eat supper with him. I can't properly explain why I acted so quickly. Marty and I had exchanged passionate intimacy the night before and I still felt excited. Larry's presence felt like a momentary break from reality, an opportunity for some excitement. Away from home. I never thought about the ramifications of cheating on Marty, at least not knowingly. If I had met Larry in Virginia, I would probably have rebuffed his approaches. However, I convinced myself that being in a different place for a few days would make things all right. Larry and I both knew after dinner that we were heading back to his room. We sipped dessert as soon as the door was closed. Larry drew me in for a kiss and we were off to the races. We had just stripped off. I was only thinking about his lovely body and Big Johnson. I quickly glanced around his large tool. That's how things went. The next morning I missed breakfast with everyone else and barely made it to my meeting. The intimacy of the night before had left an impression on me, sure they all noticed. And I received some strange glances. Nobody mentioned anything directly. I briefly considered the chance that someone would inform Marty, but I disregarded it. They were uninformed and making assumptions. Larry's intimacy was unlike anything I'd ever encountered. I believe it was a combination of being away from home without the regular obligations, and his strong, handsome physique, which included a huge member. Plus, he desired me as much as I did him. Despite having several possibilities, he chose to stay with me. My feelings for him were intense. After the meetings, I contacted him and we spent 2 hours in his room, followed by room service and more intimacy. He introduced me to something new, a level of connection that Marty and I had never imagined. But Larry wanted it. So it occurred. The next morning I felt the weight of their sideways glances and was little alarmed. However, I rejoined Larry in his room at 5 o'clock and we spent the next 4 hours together. In bed, where the intimacy was still great but not as intense as the previous evenings. We ordered room service and he recommended that we dress up and go dancing. That's exactly what we did, and that's how we got on YouTube. I recently watched a YouTube video of us. I knew Marty had seen it too. On the same night, I believe he witnessed his wife openly and shamelessly lusting after another man in public. Following our dance, we returned to the hotel and continued to be intimate. I had an early departure the next morning, so when I awoke, we were close, had a shower together and dressed. We ate breakfast in his room. Then I returned to my room to pack. Cindy, my roommate, informed me that there was a video of us dancing on YouTube, which she described as scandalous. A sense of dread overcame me. I knew I was in trouble. I spotted Bart Kovac as we boarded the bus for the airport, Marty's pal. I asked him if Marty had tried to contact me. I hadn't checked my phone during the trip and Marty had left voicemails every night. Bart informed me that Marty had watched our dance video on YouTube and was aware that I had spent every night with Larry. I felt numb. The flight back was awful. Nobody talked to me as I sat by the window next to a stranger. I knew Larry was on the airplane, but I didn't see him. After landing, I still didn't see Larry. As I got my bags, he approached me and expressed concern for my well-being. I told him I doubted I'd ever be okay again, which appeared to make him sad. It never occurred to me that Marty would pick me up, so I waited in the taxi line. Larry ended up in the same cab as me because we were both going to nearby areas. Larry apologized for the YouTube incident and admitted that he hadn't thought it through. I told him I was not in the mood to discuss much. I told the cab to drop off Larry first. When I got home, I couldn't bring myself to enter the house. Marty answered the door and his devastated and enraged expression sent me fleeing. Since then, I've been staying with my parents. I've been feeling quite numb. I attempted to speak with the girls, but Betsy pushed me away and I don't blame her. We were able to connect on a phone call, which was slightly better. I spent an hour simply preparing for it. I'm now going through counseling. Following the initial session, I began to believe that my marriage was over. Marty's explanation of his emotion struck me hard. I don't see how I can get over his wrath and sorrow right now, nor how I can ever regain his trust. I do not think I deserve it. Then there is Larry. He had been in an automobile accident. When my mother broke the news to me, I felt a deep sense of sorrow. He had requested me to phone him when we were in the taxi. Honestly, I could have contacted him, but he's already gone. His death has left me feeling another kind of emptiness. If I ever become close to another man, I know I'll be haunted by recollections of my time with Larry. However, now that he's gone, perhaps not. It's a bizarre sensation. I can't remove the feeling that if I'd opposed him, he could still be alive. It does not make sense, but it is there. I feel completely messed up. Marty has something to share. Things are beginning to calm down at home. The twins are doing well in school, despite the difficulties they have faced. Betsy is still furious, and Linda misses her mother. I believe Betsy agrees. They hold a teleconference every night. Lee appears to be doing better, although it's difficult to know from the short conversations. Our second counseling session went much like the first. Except for the group session, we had individual sessions first. Dr. Price inquired, "Have you considered what could lead to reconciliation between you two?" I could not think of anything. "Sorry, do you believe you could work on trusting Lee again if you know why she was unfaithful?" To Larry and how to avoid it in the future? That seems unrealistic. Sorry, I think she just wanted to be close to him and thought she could get away with it. Isn't this what she admitted? I believed her when she said she was drawn to Larry, but I suspect she wanted to be caught. Why? That is a significant question. Perhaps you should ask her. Doc, this isn't going to get us back together. Betrayal like this is difficult to overcome. Betrayal because she believed she could get away with it is even more difficult. What if she wants to get caught somehow? That may be even worse. It would imply that she wants out of the family, away from me and her life. She desired drama. If Larry were still alive, I feel she would be with him now. Our joint session began and finished with her apology. But I was not convinced. Even if she truly regretted and could explain her behavior, I couldn't stay with her. I had the lawyer serve the divorce papers. Lee, I received my divorce papers again today. I'm continue writing in this journal hoping to gain some clarity in the future. During our counseling appointment this week, I observed Marty seemed less angry. He appeared more composed. That indicated to me that our relationship was gone. I've read about the phases of mourning and Marty seemed to have accepted our divorce. And the way my infidelity affected our marriage. The documents came as no surprise. Now I have to contact with a lawyer. Returning to work last week was not easy. I received a frosty welcome from my co-workers. They were all aware of my infidelity and the disruption it caused in my family life. Even Brady Bean, who had previously pursued me, kept his distance. Too awful for him. He might have gotten a chance now. I believe he will try again shortly, now that he knows I am 43. The lawyer recommended me to seek shared custody of the girls because Marty owned the property before we married and has been the primary caregiver for many years. He'll most certainly stay there, but if I live nearby, I could take the girls on alternating weeks or weekends. It's all quite disheartening. I admitted my infidelity to the lawyer and begged him to speed the divorce proceedings. I don't want any financial assistance for Marty, and it appears he doesn't want any from me either. Our savings will be distributed equally. It's painful to see all those years of marriage go down the drain, leaving me with only memories. I realized I did not feel sorry for Larry. Yes, I am also to fault, but he did not have to get engaged with me. He might have selected anyone. Why me? I will never comprehend. Dr. Price noted that my actions, particularly my open flirtation and lack of effort to conceal the affair, may reflect a desire for a more interesting existence. But I disagree. Marty believes I wanted to be caught and released. So now I am free and I despise it. I've lost my hunger, even for intimacy. When I'm feeling tense, I use a vibrator instead of going to bars. I've turned Brady down several times and I'm not even tempted. It's really easy. However, I worry how long this sense of emptiness will remain. Marty, the divorce was finalized today. I have primary custody of the twins who will continue to live at our former house. Lee receives them every other weekend. Plus 2 weeks of summer and either Thanksgiving or Christmas. They might receive twice as many things for Christmas. Our settlement has been the same for the previous 6 months. Since Lee moved to an apartment 2 miles away, I've told Milton Allen that they're welcome at any time. They visit frequently and probably see the girls on Lee's weekends. I have not begun dating, although I have had a few casual meetings. Some divorced women in our friendship group have expressed interest. We go out for dinner or bowling, then return to my house for some fun without the kids. The intimacy is typically beneficial, but I have made it clear to all 3 that I am not looking for anything serious or exclusive. They are aware of my background and understand. Some may hope that I may reconsider, but I doubt it. The hurt I felt seeing Lee with that guy remains raw and I try not to dwell on it. The twins are adjusting. Linda is fine with Lee, but Betsy maintains a grudge like a professional. She looks a lot like me, which may not be a good thing. I've only discussed this with Ellen, not with Lee. Lee and I don't talk very often. She understands I try to keep our encounters to a minimum. Seeing her hurts, therefore I try to avoid it. Ellen is concerned about Lee, who has grown somewhat reclusive. I don't see her around much. Despite the fact that we share a social circle and live in close proximity, I have no sympathy for her and probably never will. I've never understood why she did what she did. I do not think she understands it either. I believe it was a mix of her general dissatisfaction, the opportunity to travel to Miami, and meeting Larry there. Perhaps any two of those would not have resulted in this, but all three together. Bam! Marriage is over. Lost at sea. A year later, Miltmore was out playing golf on a Saturday with his usual foursome. However, today an old school acquaintance, Fred Cunningham, was standing in for one of the guys. They had known each other since high school, and Fred was an electrical engineer. They talked privately as they moved away from the ninth tee. They had never discussed this issue before, not even over the telephone. Milt inquired, "How are things going for you these days, Fred?" "I'm doing okay, I suppose. I gave it a shot. Just followed him from his residence, as you suggested. He always played on Saturday afternoons when he was available. Even after retiring, he yearned to play. I learned about it in the post. It was unexpected when he dashed into the roadway. I had to make a split-second decision. Came out of nowhere. But I did it. If he had not done it, I might not have been able to swerve in time. Your honk certainly scared him, but you must have felt shaken afterwards." "I understand. I was. It worked perfectly. Even great than we imagined. Incredible. It's almost as if someone up there intervened to save Marty. I was certainly shaken. I watched him die. I was calling 911. Marty. That was Marty. He was right there. Why? I figured he needed to see it if it went down that way. You are aware of the concept of closure. But afterward, he stated that he felt robbed. I knew that would be the end for the guy. He'd do something about it eventually. He had a tool with him at the moment. I just wanted my grandchildren to have their father around. A normal. And I knew Lee well. She might have reacted negatively if Marty was arrested, especially if it was because of her. But did he truly deserve to die? Difficult to say. But Marty and the girls deserved a chance at a better life. Lee did as well. After then, the two longtime friends never brought up the matter again. They simply went side by side down the fairway in. Here is the next story. As I walked out of the dealership, I felt quite thrilled. I was the ecstatic owner of a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee SRT, whereas they were the proud owners of a Prius hybrid. I pulled over at a stop sign and sat there, looking goofy and delighted. I was aware of my plan of action. When the light came on, I depressed the gas pedal. The supercharged 6.2-liter Hemi howled as I started it till it wouldn't move. I reduced it to an acceptable level, and the smile remained permanent. When I got into my driveway, I didn't put it in the garage. I was about to drive again. I walked inside and smelt something cooking. It smelled like spaghetti. I've never really loved spaghetti. Luckily, I had plans. I did not yell. I'm at home as usual. I just went upstairs, changed into my golf attire, grabbed my clubs from the closet, and headed for the front door. Rachel emerged from the kitchen as I approached the front door. "Charles, where are you going? Whose automobile is it? Dinner is almost ready. Why are you dressed that way? And why do you own golf clubs?" "Well, honey, I am going to play golf. This is my automobile. These are my golf gear, and I'll need the clubs to play." She gazed at me like I was insane. "You said nothing about playing golf. How about dinner?" "I'll eat dinner at the country club," I told her. "Have a lovely dinner." I heard her voice as I closed the door. "What do you mean? It is your car." I didn't have time to answer frivolous queries, so I went on my way. My phone began ringing nearly immediately, so I switched it off. After arriving at the country club, Ralph and Pete treated me to a great supper before. I played 9 holes. It was clear that I had not played in a long time. That is it. By the end, I was feeling better. So I was prepared for the following time. After opting to play early on Saturday, I went home and had a few drinks. I realized there was a major storm developing in my home. I pulled the SRT into the garage and entered. Rachel sat on her chair, appearing irritated, and watched television. Lightning flashed between her eyes and brows. "Rose, what the hell is wrong with you, Charles?" Thunder rolled from her lips. "Nothing," Actually, I stated. What the hell is wrong with you? The insurrection appeared to take her by surprise. I should clarify that I am not normally this argumentative. I'm a calm guy. If I don't care about something, I remain silent. I do not care what color the kitchen appliances are. She prefers stainless steel instead of black. I don't care so long as we can afford it. Stainless steel. I was certain she interpreted my general lack of opinion as a lack of willpower. It was probably partly my fault. There would be no more of this. For a little moment, she looked at me, surprised. What the hell is wrong with me? She practically hissed. You drive home in this gasoline-eating beast. Tell me you are going golfing. Skip the dinner I prepared, and you've got the guts to ask me what's wrong. I paused to analyze it. Yes, I replied gently. What do you mean by yes? She was nearly spewing out of her mouth. Yes, I'm truly brave enough to say it. Her face appeared red and blotchy. Charles, are you inebriated? Do you take drugs or anything else? At the country club, I had a couple beers, but no drugs. Are there any meds you want me to take? She appeared to be at a loss for words, but rapidly recovered. There may be. Maybe you should take some antipsychotic medicine. She took a step back and opened the door from the kitchen into the garage. She must have been impressed with the automobile. A gorgeous automobile. She snorted. Are you experiencing some sort of midlife crisis? I thought about it for a moment. Yeah? Yeah. What did she want to know? Yes, I am experiencing a crisis, and I suppose 41 is considered middle age. So what's the matter? She inquired, demanding. What is what? That's a fairly ambiguous question. What crisis? She seemed upset. It is a secret. So you're experiencing a problem and keeping it a secret from me? She appeared unable to believe it. No, I replied. Stop being an ass, she shouted. What do you mean, no? I am not keeping it a secret from you. She spread her hands. I will not waste my time. What is that ridiculous toy doing in our garage? And where is the Prius? I traded it in for an SRT. I did not enjoy the Prius. I enjoyed the SRT. We agreed that the Prius is both ecologically friendly and inexpensive. She remarked. It's the type of vehicle that responsible people drive. You should consider how you will appear if you cram this beast into your workplace. Parking space. All XX drive hybrids. How will they react when they see you driving a dinosaur? Envy. We agreed on the Prius, she explained. No, I never agreed, I replied. I just agreed because it is what you wanted. That's correct, she replied harshly. Don't you care about my pleasure anymore? Tomorrow you'll return it and get your Prius back. No. She pretended she didn't know what the word no meant. What does no mean? I will not take it back and I will not return the Prius. She considered for a moment. Her countenance changed as I heard it. 3 days ago, I'd have cared. What is wrong with you, Charles? I've concluded that I appreciate being called Chuck. From now on, you must address me as Chuck. Her mouth was ajar and she appeared speechless. That was very kind of you. When I walked out of the bedroom, I went upstairs to shower and prepare for bed. There was a pillow and a blanket at the foot of the bed. You're going to sleep in the guest room, she explained. You're acting like a whiny child and don't expect me to sleep with you. I paused for a bit before pulling back the cover. I began to sit up when her eyes darted out of her orbit. How in the world do you think you are doing this, getting into bed? You're not going to sleep here, I've told you. Yes, I heard you. Nothing is wrong with my hearing. Please don't tell me where to sleep. My side of the bed is this. The remaining half is yours. I am not going into your half. It is only fair to inform you that you should not climb on mine either. She rolled angrily onto my side. I grabbed the blanket from her hands and sat on her before lying on top of her. She tried furiously to shove me away. I weighed 200 pounds, her weight was 100. She failed badly. Get off me, fool. She attempted to slap me, but I grabbed her hand. That's my side, I informed her. Your side is over there. You aren't welcome on my side. I lifted it slightly and she rolled over onto her side. Then she started crying. "What is wrong with you, Charles?" she sobbed. "What is wrong with you? Why are you treating me like this?" "There's no Charles," I told her. "It's just Chuck. I told you I enjoy being called Chuck. I thought you enjoyed being named Charles." She cried. "No, you were the one who liked calling me Charles," I said. "I never liked it. I simply went along with it, for your sake. Why don't you want to help me feel better? I don't believe you respect me. I believe the reason you don't is that I've spent my entire life trying to please you. I am done. Now I'll make myself pleased. If you are happy because I am happy, that is fantastic. If you are not a big thug." She made a soft weeping sound. "What is wrong? Yesterday you were the world's best spouse. The next day I consider you a witch's son. It actually took 3 days, not a single day." She stared at me. She was pretty similar to one of those chicks waiting for their mother to feed them. "I do not have any worms for you," I told her. She looked at me as if an alien had entered my body. "Worms? What the hell is wrong with you? Are you feeling ill?" I paused to consider before responding. The response to the first question is difficult. Yes, she made her decision after seriously considering the second question. "Are you feeling ill? Sure, what is the matter with you? What kind of disease forces you to trade in your beautiful car for a monster that eats gasoline? How ill are you if you can drink beer and play golf?" "It's a cardiac condition," I told her. She seemed embarrassed. "Have you got clogged arteries or an erratic heartbeat? What is the connection between your behavior and your cardiac condition? It isn't actually an illness." My heart had changed, like a transplant. "Are you going to tell me what's happening? I learned 3 days ago that you are a cheater." All of the love in my heart perished and it was replaced by a heart exactly like yours. Now I care about myself and I do not care about you. "What do you call me?" she demanded. "Perhaps you should have your hearing examined." Did I stutter? "No, you were really clear," she stated. "I'm not sure what bug is up your ass, but you should deal with it. You simply accused your wife of cheating, which I don't like to interpret as an indictment. I described it as more of a factual statement." "What the hell are you talking about?" she virtually screamed. "There's no reason to yell. I'm right here." I said, "I'm talking about your hotel date with Alan and Marcy Baker." Her face turned pallid. "What? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Do you know who the president is? What day is today?" She simply stared at me. Someone suffers from frightening short-term memory loss, probably due to a stroke. I took out my phone and opened the chat room. They were saved to both the chat room and my phone. I wasn't about to tell her where else they were saved. There were photographs as large as life size. Rachel was walking through the door of room 177 at the Dorchester Hotel. She was kissing Marcy while Alan had his hand on her ass. "Where did you obtain those?" she asked. "McLean sent it to me," I explained. "I'm very sure he also emailed them to Lonnie. They're really upset. We have a boy named McLean and a daughter named Lonnie." She wowed McLean. "He noticed you're lying. You acquired those from someplace." I showed her the photo that McLean took. "No, he was dropping off a customer when he noticed you come in. He just wanted to say hi." Imagine his astonishment at your little date. I like the word, don't you? It was not. God. "So what are you going to do, Charles?" Charles is not going to do what I said. Chuck is already on the case. He has already planned tragic incidents for the 3 of you. She stared at me with terror for a moment. I guess she assumed I wasn't kidding. "Really? What are you planning to do?" "Nothing," I replied. "I recruited some of my pals to handle everything. Alan and Marcy will die tomorrow, with you. I will wait until next Wednesday. I figure that because Alan and Marcy are going to work tomorrow, their airbags will be out of action. They will deploy, forcing the vehicle to crash. Of course, by then, the airbags would have deflated. Mario is convinced that the crash will be fatal. It is widely known that these Priuses perform poorly in crash tests. This is why I got rid of mine." She looked at me with her mouth wide for a minute. It wasn't a very beautiful appearance. After that scary revelation, she did her best to maintain her composure. Strangely, she didn't seem to care that our sleeping companions might perish. I had a selfish idea. How about we? She was able to flee. Thank heavens we've departed. Naturally, I am ending our marriage. Are you certain your employer would not object if you report for work tomorrow? We're 3 of their employees out on a date. How I adore that word. A date building up to a divorce, and delivering papers at work could make things difficult. I doubt Colton Fisk will enjoy the drama, being a big man in the church and all. I'm wondering if Alan and Marcy will be allowed to hold their funeral at the church. This prompted Rachel to let forth a bizarre, distorted shriek that sounded as threatening as some peacocks at the zoo. I turned off my lights. "Good night, Rachel," I said. "I'm wondering if I'll receive both parts of the bed in a divorce." She pushed herself onto my side of the bed, clinging to my back like a leech. "I do not want a divorce, Charles." She sobbed on my back. I did not respond. "Charles." She drew me tighter against her. "Charles, I do not want a divorce." Silence. She peeked over my shoulder. "Charles, Charles." I gazed at her. "There's no Charles," I told her. "So you're on my side of the bed." "God damn it, Chuck." "Then Chuck, I do not want a divorce." I rolled over to her. I didn't want a cheating bitch as a wife either. But I got her despite the fact that I did not want her. It's funny how that works. She didn't seem to be as curious as I was. "I'm sorry, Chuck," she said. "It was simply something I wanted to try. I was intrigued about what it was like to be with another woman." "I agree." I said, "Wow, are we so much alike?" I also had the idea that Alan was a man. "Is anyone else aware that he is not cisgender?" "Don't be ridiculous," she advised. It was just the 3 of us, but I hadn't slept with him, only with Marcy. Did he sit in the chair and watch rather than assist? A gendered voyeur, a pervert. He was doing Marcy and she was doing me, she revealed. Do you understand how ludicrous this conversation is? What possible fantasy could have led you to believe that this was beneficial to your cause? She pondered for a time, but couldn't think of anything reasonable. I was about to give you the same thing. She eventually squeezed out the same thing. "What does this mean?" I asked. She described me and Marcy as part of a triangle of love. "You just informed me you wanted to be with another woman." "Marcy isn't the type of woman I'm interested in," I explained. "I was thinking about the one who hadn't had sex with half the males in town." "Who were you thinking of?" "What the hell?" Chuck was on fire. I could as well have been fiddling with her thoughts. I'll admit that Lily was always at the top of my fantasy list, my sister. She squealed. "You asked me that," I reminded her. Lily was as stunning as heck. Rachel was a walking wet dream. Lily was all of these things. But more blonde hair, brown eyes, and a few freckles on the prettiest little nose ever. And her body was in the most stunning shape. It had the kind of shape that made your mouth tighten just looking at it. Not to mention other areas of your body. Her melons were large, spherical, and firm. She oozed sensuality from every pore and forced men to do stupid things when she was near. She was 5 years younger than Rachel and I. She had been temporarily married to an up-and-coming NFL player in her late 40s, but dumped him when he washed out, started drinking, and couldn't keep a job. Lily had a crush on me while we were dating. She was in high school while Rachel was in college. I adored her and found it humorous, but I never did anything about it. Yes, I was lustful, but even if given the chance, I would not act on it. I was curious if Rachel would pursue it, and more importantly, whether Lily would. It did not matter. Rachel was leaving me regardless. But this was an excellent opportunity to drive her away. I could see Rachel's mind working. "I will not have 3 of us making love with my sister." She eventually spoke. I shrugged and went back to sleep. The divorce went as smoothly as possible. Rachel battled as hard as she could, but divorces are no longer as time-consuming as they once were. Most people are familiar with what happens during a divorce, and it is not pleasant. but Chuck enjoyed his life. How do you leave your beloved? Simply take out the trash. Sometimes rubbish objects are removed, yet it happens. I never got to see the three of us making out with Lily. I'm content to be partnered up, though. The sumptuous figure of this darling, the small spoon next to me, makes it impossible for me to imagine the three of us together. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, write a comment below with your thoughts on what transpired.